All right, today we're talking about the evolution of work and remote talent and how that's affecting, in particular, the agency model. We've got lots of agency owners who listen to this podcast. My guest today is Chris Perkins. He heads up an agency that has a different model from what you might traditionally think of. I'll tell you more about him in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of the show, and every week we have smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs from all kinds of companies. We've had Gusto, Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, Lending Tree, lots of great episodes, and lots of people in the agency space as well. And so you can check out those episodes. We've had Jason Swank, Carl Smith, David C. Baker, Roger Herney, lots of great episodes if you check out the archives. Before we get into this episode is brought to you by Rise25, our company where we help businesses to give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. We do that by helping companies to run their podcasts. We are the easy button for a company to launch and run their podcast. We do three things: strategy, accountability, and full execution, especially using our platform, which is called Podcast Copilot. So to learn more about Podcast Copilot and Rise25, go to rise25.com, or you can email our team at support@rise25.com. All right, and before I get into today's guest, I want to thank Ashton Moore, friend of the podcast, friend of Rise25, who has introduced us to today's guest, which I'm really excited about. He's the president at Model B, which is an independent growth marketing agency based out of the DMV, Washington, D.C. Area, which I was just researching how that term came about. It's kind of interesting because I was born in Washington, D.C. We never called it the DMV back in the day, but that's the term now. It was founded in 2016. The agency has had a lot of momentum through Perkins, who has a ton of experience in the agency space, including here in the San Francisco Bay Area, where I am based. And Chris, great. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. And I love to start always by getting to know what people were like as a kid. And we've had people that mowed lawns. We've had people that have sold gum at school and got busted by their teacher. We had people that sold weed at school, got busted by the principal. We've had people that are doing lemonade stands, stuff like that. You built and flipped a boat. That's pretty cool. You're 13 years old, growing up in Michigan. As one does in Michigan, you buy a boat, play with it for a little bit, fix it up, and sell it. That's pretty cool. Tell us that story.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I'll actually tie two things together. I mowed lawns to be able to buy the boat, and
plowed the profits into the boat. Nice.
Well, even better, it was a cashless deal. I said to the folks that had a boat, the first thing they did is they invited me to babysit their kids one day, and I said while I was there, "Hey, Ed was the dad, who mows your lawn?" He said, "I don't really have anybody." I said, "Who owns that boat that's sitting out there that's a mess?" And he said, "Well, that's a boat I need to get it cleaned up and all that." I said, "Well, I'll mow the lawn for the rest of the summer in exchange for the boat." And the deal was done.
Nice.
And so lots of learning. At 13, I thought it would just be, a little wax and off I'd go. And little did I know that there's these things called motors that actually require a fair amount of care and feeding. And
how big was this boat?
it was a little a Starcraft 15 and a half footer,
Okay.
Which was very much the trend back in the 70s. And it had a 70 horse Johnson outboard on it. And that was one of the worst engines made by Johnson during that period. It was a 3-cylinder, and the reed valves in it, I came to learn at 13, are something that were very finicky. So $375 after I dropped it off at the marina, it came back repaired, and I had many other lawns to mow to cover that. Yeah. And then I also learned that these things take gas and oil and
A lot more expensive than you expected. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But after having it for the summer and getting it on the water, I got to ski a little bit and then sold it for a nice little profit, and parlayed that into what I would do next, and did buy a few other boats and flip them. One sailboat. So it was a great way to learn and kind of be entrepreneurial as a young kid, and not flip burgers. Nothing against it, but that wasn't my vibe. I wanted to be outside, and that gave me a great way to do it.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Well, let's talk about your professional career because you started you actually lived here in the Bay Area and you worked for some of the iconic companies, Ogilvy, Hal Riney, Publicis. These are some big agencies back in the day. When I first moved to the Bay Area, which was 20 years ago, agencies were huge here in San Francisco. Lots of people worked for these agencies. Now they're a tiny little portion of what they once were, and everyone works in tech. So that industry has changed a lot. What was it like working at these big, iconic companies like Ogilvy and Hal Riney back in the day?
It was, I mean, literally so invigorating. I mean, I remember my first week at Hal Riney and Partners, which was before the Publicis deal, because Publicis acquired them. Um, I literally was hired as an account supervisor. I was working on First Union Bank, which is a Charlotte-based bank and back in the day, and now is, after the Russian Doll Act of banks is, part of Wells Fargo. But I worked on that business and across from my office sat this British planner, strategic planner, brilliant guy, and he would go like he worked like crazy on mostly new business. And what I found really interesting is he would work so hard that he almost burned himself out, and then he'd be ineffective and basically do nothing for like a week or two. And like my third week in the job, the president of the agency came in and said to him, "Buddy, today's your last day. Appreciate everything you've done. Wish you luck." And handed him
Wow.
a envelope with his check and asked him to pack up and head out.
Wow.
And this planner, his name was Andy, this planner was gobsmacked. I mean, he was like, how on earth can that be like what's happening here? And it turned out that what I learned from that experience was that everybody had to give 100% all the time, that there was no downtime. And it wasn't that it was a sweatshop, but it was because the industry is so kind you're so dependent on your partners, that the work ethic was very, very clear and clear to the point where you could be a superstar, but if you weren't on and contributing and delivering to your partners all the time, you were out.
Wow.
So it was just absolutely like an eye opener, and it changed the way I look at the way I would work, and it gave me a lot more pride in a way of being at such a really interesting place doing such amazing work.
Yeah. And some of the client work was really interesting in spite of that kind of like you either produce at all times or not attitude there. But some of the client work was really interesting. Some of the talk a little bit about the clients that you came across.
Well, yeah, I mean the client that's best known, I mean the Hal himself and the team built the Saturn brand. That's what the agency was known for, and
Ah, I had a Saturn.
yeah, and
Yeah, they're
not
fading into oblivion now. It's been like 15 years or something since they
completely.
disappeared. Yeah, but it was a very different car company. In fact, that was kind of their slogan.
That was very much it, right? It wasn't, they weren't over-promising. They weren't saying they were the best thing in the world. They were just a solid, affordable American-made car. And
Yeah.
that was the bottom line. And that pragmatism, that kind of authenticity allowed people to be proud of being an American, auto driver, and to have a utilitarian vehicle, because that's very much what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, the team also did um, Bartles and James, which was a big thing back in the day. Black Star Beer. Hal was, did a lot of voiceover work himself. I happened to work on First Union Bank, but we also did a bunch of dot-com stuff because that was, the time when money was like,
Yeah.
oxygen and it was just flowing everywhere. I mean, we did Webvan, the
Oh,
first.
Webvan
I know, right?
precursor. So
Yeah.
Webvan was kind of like, it's basically delivery of groceries back in the day, but way too soon.
Way too soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were so infrastructure focused, they forgot actually how to make money. And I mean, they burned through $1 billion in cash
Oh,
only to go away. And
wow.
a lot of that
Yeah.
stuff's still out there. The kind of learning is out there. But I mean, the PE money that flowed into those deals. I mean, and the phone would ring. I mean, back in that time, the phone would ring And it'd be some company saying, we've got, $20 million. We're a new brand. Can you help us, with a Super Bowl spot or, whatever. And it was insane. I mean,
Hmm.
literally insane. And I mean, I actually worked on the competitor to TiVo, a
Mm.
company called Replay TV,
Oh yeah.
which was a DVR,
Yep.
before that became commonplace and
Right.
available everywhere.
Pre
And
pre-streaming. This was revolutionary because before it was just VHS tapes,
that's right.
and then all of a sudden you could record whatever you wanted digitally, watch it back. You could pause live TV. That was really revolutionary too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was, I
Now
mean,
I have a 6 year old as my youngest, and now if we like go to a hotel room or someone else's house or something like that, we're watching live TV. They'll pop up and be like, "I'm going to the bathroom. Pause it." And I'm like,
right.
I can't pause it, and they don't even understand.
Right. Well, I
Yeah.
have I have a friend that take that to the other level. I have a friend that has the ability to do that with their car stereo, whatever content they're listening to. Obviously, you can do it if you're streaming,
Yeah.
but when there's just listening to
A
other
radio or
content,
something. Oh,
they could
okay.
do the same. And I
Well.
mean, it's like, and the kid was expecting that capability and like,
Hmm.
hey, replay that, and they're like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
It's the expectation of the young folks is so completely different. And it's fun to see.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty funny. So you kind of have this heyday. How did that experience shape your approach now? I'm kind of previewing what we're going to get to. I
Yeah.
don't want to get to that full discussion yet because there's more I want to ask about. But just thinking back now on your experience of working in the heyday of these big agencies, it's a very different staffing model, very different talent pool. Back then, you had to hire people from Boston or San Francisco or whatever, or New York. But how does that shape your approach and your philosophy today?
Yeah, I mean, so I moved from working on First Union to working on a variety of different accounts to then leading the HP Personal Systems Group account at Hal Riney, and right at that time we actually were acquired by Publicis, and so we operationalized global rollout of a unified campaign. First time ever HP had done it. They did used to do it regionally and had agencies regionally, so they had lots of duplication of time and effort, and as we got we so the first round campaign we did was headed the right direction. Everybody was on board, and it was really working phenomenally. The second, as we started our second year planning, the Jan McDaniel, who was our client lead, said, "Let's get together with our team and your team in Ireland, and let's spend 10 days locked up writing our next year's plan." And I said, "Great, love it." I mean, haven't been to that part of Ireland. That'd be amazing. And we get to, have some time together. Would be good. Um, and I said, "So who are you bringing?" She said, "Well, I'm bringing like 35 people." And I'm like, "To do what? That sounds like team building, not working, like getting stuff done." And she's like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, who are you bringing?" And I'm like, "Well, if we're going to write a plan for the next year that we actually build and execute on a global basis, I'm going to bring six other people and me." And she's like, "Oh." And so she ended up bringing like five people. We brought six total. And in 10 days, we had a really ready to take on the road plan, outline, and framework that we then took to regional centers. And that was the point at which I realized, even though we had effectively 150 people in scope per our contract and lots of people in different offices around the globe through the Publicis network, fundamentally the drivers of that are a small team.
Hmm.
Like the strategic imperatives are coming from a small team. And so that's very much the lessons that kind of led to where we are today, and then tying that to with the way the market is the talent is available. It's like you've never seen a different, like, the number of people just last year, 3.4 million more people changed their LinkedIn profile from W-2 to 1099.
Wow. Interesting.
3.4 million people. And those are greatly talented people. And sometimes it's because they're older and they were a high salary, and, it's easier to get somebody younger or now the AI is taking a lot of those, maybe not taking their job, but it's a reason that's being used. And certainly over time, it's delivering efficiencies that will affect people. But yeah, so I mean, that was one of those real seminal moments for me. And so you pair great work and small team that focuses on the most important bits. And that's the foundation of what we've built to
Yeah.
be around.
The other thing I'm struck by from that experience, like flying across the globe with even a half dozen people or 35 people or whatever it is, getting together in a room for 10 days together, the amount of money that was spent on these things that's now saved today through things like Zoom and, stuff like that is just mind-boggling. How much more expensive it must have cost for a client like HP to roll out an international project. I mean, it would just about have been nuts.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a million miler on United and American Airlines, and I would happily trade those back in for, time with family or,
Mm,
fishing or reading a book or, actually having time to do productive things.
yeah.
Now that's not to say that there isn't value in spending time together. There is, but um, doing it more thoughtfully and deciding when it's team building, deciding when it's strategy and work sessions and being really discreet about that and rethinking even the purpose of office. Like, going to an office is irrelevant if you don't have value built into the way you collaborate. And we
Right.
think very hard about that and advise our clients accordingly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think about that because the number of jobs I had, back in the day, high school, college, after college, where it was just a bunch of people traveling across town, 45 minutes or an hour to get into an elevator to go up in an office building and then sit in their cubicle or office one wall over from another person who's doing something else completely independently. It didn't make any sense. Functionally, you could have been doing it in your own house and saved all that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you look at like some of the methodologies out there. There are companies that have standing meetings only, and that was done in the 80s, right? Because
Yeah.
their thought was come prepared to. And I think it might have been actually been Amazon where their approach to it was that the discussion framework had to be supplied in advance so people could consume it as a baseline. So you'd enter the room hot
Right.
and ready to discuss, and they do a standing meeting. And if you weren't done in a certain amount of time, it was rescheduled or there was a new time, and you were basically on a list of
Yeah.
people to help. And those are lessons to me that we can leverage as we think about the future of work and the future of kind of cracking problems differently.
Right.
The worst thing we could do is try to go back to what used to be a 9 to 5 in an office and a desk in a cube farm or whatever. I mean, I think that's just the death of humanity, and it scares me to death that companies are demanding people to start doing that again on certain levels.
There definitely is a trend as we record this in mid 2025 of companies kind of demanding that back to work, back in the office type of thing. I want to before we get into that further in that discussion, I want to ask about Brand USA. So you were CMO for this first initiative, nationwide initiative to sell tourism to the United States. This is around 2011 timeframe. Where did that come from? How did that originally come about?
So the travel industry as a group had worked for years to get Congress to, basically create a national brand organization that would focus on inbound tourism, countrywide, right? So it's one of those ironic jobs. You're selling everything and nothing, right? You can't book through Brand USA,
Yeah.
but you can create that clarity of what we stand for. You can create that clarity of ways you can access the experiences that are those of your choice. And but to me, it was created by the travel industry. They got the Obama administration to pass a bill called the Corporation or the Travel Promotion Act in 2010, and then they formed a board from the industry, all the different kind of major, airlines and hoteliers and destinations and state level destination marketing organizations, DMOs, and that board then began the process of hiring team. I was number three, the CEO and a key assistant. I was employee number three, and literally 7.5 months, we built a global program integrated and ready to go with an incredible partnership program across the industry, including all the U.S. territories. in 9 countries, and investing effectively a $200 million budget to invite the world to the U.S. And in year one, we calculated with Oxford Economics travel division a 20 to 1 ROI.
Mm.
I'm so proud of the work that we did as a great team. And JWT back in the day when that was an agency was my global agency, and I had several other partners. But it was a great honor to do that because two reasons. One, it wasn't like it was hard to invite people. But honestly, we'd never said as a country, welcome, please come visit. We
Yeah.
never had said that. In fact,
Mm.
you could argue even having Homeland Security as kind of our border management was
Right.
like, we only care about us,
Right.
we're going to pretend you're not
Right.
there.
And I just went through the border crossings. I went to Canada this summer, and it is not a friend. And I'm an
Yeah,
American citizen. It is not
that's
a
right.
friendly experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and there was a time period right around there where in working with them, it actually improved in some ways. And now it's, back to the dark days, if not
Yeah.
even darker. But, it was a great honor to do that. And the thing I'm most proud of is it was not about red, white, and blue and the Statue of Liberty and the things that we as Americans value and kind of relate to and kind of our pride points. It was about the United States being the land of endless possibility.
Mm.
And we got to that because we talked to people around the world. And in fact, one of the things we actually did to get them to help us refine the strategy is we gave them prepaid postcards and asked them to send a postcard to America telling us what they think of it.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
it was and then we made a coffee table book out of that. That was actually
Hmm.
the first thing we did and used to kind of make sure that people knew we'd done the due diligence of understanding the way people think about us.
It's a cool
And
idea.
and at the time, you have to imagine, like at the time, a lot of people's context was pop culture and kind of film and
Hmm.
the Jersey Shore was the most widely viewed show globally. And to think that's their view of America. I mean,
Yeah.
so we had a lot of work to do to kind of give them
Hmm.
a clearer view into past the big cities
So
and
I have to ask about what some of the challenges were in that job because there must have been so many challenges. One like were you like reporting up to like the White House and senators, funding coming from different sources, then also getting all these different, I guess maybe the tourism boards involved and these territories involved and states involved and all in agreement on messaging. Talk to me a little bit on some of the challenges around that.
Well, so the good news is that the organization was set up as a public-private partnership, so we had autonomy to a point. The board was appointed by a collection of senators that backed the original act. So we did have some oversight. In fact, I spent a lot of time on the Hill with, Klobuchar and Chuck Schumer, and Blunt from Missouri, and folks in the White House. Back then it was Jeffrey Zients and others. And so we did have to get their awareness of what we were doing and why. And the bar was show me the money, right? If we could quantitatively prove that the investment was coming back in more inbound tourism, longer stays, more spending, then everybody's fine.
Yeah.
But we did have, I had, one senator literally say, I want to see something from my district in the ads. And if you
Hmm.
don't do that, you're going to have
Yeah.
hell to pay. And I
Mm.
mean, he wasn't that direct, but he was that
Yeah.
direct. And
Yeah.
so, we found a way to do it in a way that was not unfair to the other, millions of destinations and content that we could cover. And it was organic. And of course, part of the story is how do you continue to build the volume of experiences and create, we actually, one of the web experiences that we had was think of it as a mixing board. We literally created a mixing board on the website where you could do sliders, family or children,
Mm. Hmm.
sunny or cold.
Yeah.
And based on that, it would calibrate and present to you a range of visual tiles that you could then click on to go down into the experience continuum.
Cool idea.
And then, so part of what we did is we kept the industry busy by saying, feed us that info. You want to be in it? Feed
Uh,
us that info. So
uh,
now you're present. Now you're in it. And
yeah.
we had 3,500 plus partners providing us content, and that was all part of the operating system and mechanism. And that way, it was less about I want to be in the ad and I want to make sure I'm present. And we served all the masters that way.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, the biggest challenge was our funding model required oversight from the Department of Commerce and Treasury, and they'd never seen anything like it before. They'd never, like, how do you value advertising,
Right.
and
Yeah.
how do you measure ROI? And so I spent way too many days and nights working with them to explain that it's not a gap compliant methodology. You can't put it on a balance sheet.
Yeah.
It's a much more qualitative measure with the best science applied, and that was probably the most unique and least fun part of my job, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that. Let's get to talking about Model B, as you have an interesting vantage point. I'm looking at your LinkedIn here, and it says that you were a board member first before moving into the role of president. So talk a little bit about what your involvement was first, what your involvement is now, and then we'll get into some of the discussion around the, mixing internal resources, using outside resources, and how that model works.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, the curious thing, the owners group actually reached out to me through a recruiter, a prominent recruiter in the industry, about joining as president early on, before I became a board member. And I had a conversation with them, and what they really meant was they wanted a new business person. And I said, look, my belief on that is it's a team sport. Everybody's got to do it. Somebody can drive that bus, but here's how I would do it. And we had a great connection. Really liked all the guys, and Ashton, the guy you mentioned earlier, as one of them. I really had a great connection to him, but my approach was so foreign to them that one of the other people they were talking with, they actually moved forward with, and he came from the media space and had a huge book of contacts, having been a media rep, selling basically media space. And his story was, I got a Rolodex. I'm going to load up your account list, and it's going to be amazing. And I'll never forget, the CEO at the time, Abton Bugari, said, Chris, we really like you and we want to stay in touch, but we think the better play for us is having this guy that's got this book, and it's going to, be the quickest path to revenue. And I said, look, I want you to make the right decision for you. I will warn you. I've seen this episode before. It's not going to end well, I don't think. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I don't say that because I want you to fail. And sure enough, 5 months later, things had changed and it wasn't the right fit, and it didn't pay out. But during that time, they said, look, you had all these ideas that we don't really understand. Like, you keep saying, what if you did this? What if you did that? Come be on the board and help us build that. I'm like, great, let's go. And so I joined the board, and, like, a good board member, I offered, very clear guidance as best I could. And as a board member, your job is to provide guidance and support, and not to do, right? And so I was doing that, but the team didn't understand it well enough to actually execute. And so as I was wrapping up my current engagement at the time, we closed a B round and it was time for me to go. I'd built a team and I'd done the stuff I do. I stepped out. And as soon as I stepped out, they were like, hey, you keep poking us about all this stuff. Come and do it, for God's sake. And so I did. In January of 23, I came in as president, and we began the process of building our current business model. And here we are today, really seeing the benefit of a very untraditional, innovative new business, or new business model, not just new business, but an operating system for an agency that we think is really right for the times.
So walk me through it. For a client comes to you looking for help with a marketing issue, and you said you use a mix of internal resources and outside resources. I can think of a lot of different ways in which that could go poorly, right?
Yeah.
Is requiring teams that haven't worked together to suddenly work together in collaboration for a client. Talk a little bit about how you make it work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a client's job is to ask for advertising and marketing support, right? And they often very ask for specific tactical level work. And one of the challenges is the industry very often just does what they're asked. So we take a management consulting front end approach so we understand how each client makes money and where marketing can apply best. So when a client says we want to do ads, we step back and say, "Now that totally do that. That's great. How can we make sure they're going to deliver you the result that you're looking for? And what are the friction points? What's the customer experience look like? Is it, where do we make sure those ads go? Who's your ICP? We have a lot of questions, and we don't beat them to death with questions. We literally form what we call an ecosystem map that visualizes what the touch points are that are both structurally internally and on the outside and where those customers sit and why and we titrate it by their relative value and then and only then do we decide what tactical kind of approaches we'll go forward with and then with our 12-person team some of the stuff we can do ourselves. But, in the world today, and this is something that I learned, in these big agencies, if you have lots of departments, the best people in those departments, when you go tap them, are always busy.
Yeah.
So guess what
Yeah.
happens? You use who's available, and sometimes it's Susie and Bob, the two interns. And
Yeah.
are you really getting your client the value that a big agency pretends is really happening there? In most cases, no. And no agency can be great at everything, right? It's just impossible. Even the biggest organizations in the world have capacity and utilization criteria, and they're commercial first, delivering value second. They're there to make money, and so that misalignment is a big opportunity in the world today. And given there are so many wonderful agencies out there that have capacity, they love it when we have actually created what we call the partner collective, which is over 60 agencies around the globe that we've vetted, we've got papered, and they're on a cloud-based platform. So I can go in and say, I want a CRM partner that is exceptional in life sciences. And
Mm.
bingo, they're searchable. All their information tells me that that's their skill set. And it's a hand raiser model. So when they raise their hand, they have the right people, the right skill set, and they're ready to go. And the beauty is it costs us nothing and our clients nothing until we deploy them.
Mm.
And you think about it from their perspective, they're thinking, wait, I just got a lead and it didn't have to do anything other than say yes. Let's go. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a win-win-win. And that's, kind of part of our ethos is how do we have a yes and model that delivers a better result, takes the friction and brings precision to the table. And we, the marketplace is ripe for it today. And we think it's a better approach.
Has it been, I guess, where has the challenge been as you've built this model? Has it been building the bench of the 60 companies? Has it been educating the market about the model that you've built? Has it been getting the word about out, so visibility about Model B? Where's the biggest challenge been?
Well, honestly, it's all of those, because with depending on which data you look at, there's 10,000 marketing services firms in the US. And so, I mean, you do a search, there's, more than you can bear to even look at. And so part of what we're careful to do is be discreet about fit, right? And to not fight the headwinds. If somebody doesn't get us pretty quickly in the conversation on a prospect level, we're not going to get them there, right? And if they've got a procurement hurdle set that is, you have to have SOC 2 and everybody has to be domestic and everybody, all these rules, we're not right for them. And that's fine. There's enough clients out there that need us that are open-minded and frankly looking for a better solution. And what we find is, I would say 80% of the conversations we have, the light bulb goes off pretty quickly and they're like, oh. And then they ask questions like, well, how do you tap into them? Well, we have the cloud-based platform. Let me show it to you. And I literally say to them, what's the project that what's the solution or the skill set that you need? Type it in. Bingo. There's 8 people that are large, medium, and small in the collective that do that. Oh, okay. Now I see. And by the way, do you have an internal team? Yes. We can ingest them into the platform. So now we can actually have a collaborative model. So it's not us against them. It's us and them together. And, so our hypothesis, which is proving out very nicely, is there's individual contractors and agencies that can be very precise talent that we can tap with very low friction. It just requires us setting up having NDAs in place, setting up a cloud-based system that keeps us in touch in a really low friction way. So you get, friction reduction and precision and talent.
And all those tools exist now compared to where we started this conversation 25 years ago, when there was no Zoom, there's no Slack, there's no all these things that you can use to, project management tools like a Monday or a ClickUp or something like that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, an example of that, literally last night at 10 o'clock my time, I was on with a company out of Hong Kong and a partner in Mumbai. Would a 12-person agency be a credible resource for something in a global apparel manufacturer based in Hong Kong? No, they wouldn't even know about us. But the partner in Mumbai knew that we would bring a resource pool to the table for a prospect that they had a connection with. So together, we're effectively a much bigger resource and much more productive and much more efficient. And happy to do it. It's just a shortcut.
Yeah, such a cool model. Well, I know we're about out of time, so I'll wrap up there, Chris. So first of all, my last question, I'm a big fan of gratitude, big fan of expressing gratitude and giving our guests a little bit of space at the end here to acknowledge any peers, contemporaries, someone like that who they would want to acknowledge, anyone you would want to shout out.
I could give you a list of hundreds of people because I've been the beneficiary of being around really great people, but I'll focus on Bob Kalinske. Bob Kalinske was a client of mine. He was at Radio Shack. Doing really good work and like helping us as we were on the age. I was at Arnold Worldwide at the time and helping our team see through the fog of a failing retailer. But a great partner. He's one of those people that if you ask Bob, anybody were to ask Bob how he's doing today, his answer is the same every time, and he means it. And it's, I'm freaking awesome. And that optimism, that positivity is infectious, and I just love the man. He's a great friend, and today happens to be his birthday, so it's
perfect timing. That's great. I wish I was publishing it today, but it'll have to go a little later. Great, Chris. Where can people go to learn more about you and Model B?
Well, you can go to modelb.com and find us for sure, or I'm on LinkedIn. I am under Topher.Perkins, which is the last half of Christopher. So Topher Perkins, or you can just look me up under Chris Perkins there and probably find me. John, thanks for the chance to chat. It's been fun.
Yeah, Chris, thanks so much. Oh, and you have a new podcast also that people can check out too.
We do, Beyond the Brief, which is just that. It's a conversation with marketers for marketers around where they get their insights and ideas that are not on the brief. And it's a fun thing. We talk to all kinds of people. Check it out.
Great. All right. Thanks so much, Chris.
All right. Thanks, John.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.